Well, Philip, welcome back to the show, man. It's great to see you.
Thanks, Cable. It's been a while, and I'm always listening to you. You know, out here on the ranch, there's not a lot of entertainment options, so I've got my headphones on and my podcast going, and you're top on my list. And so I enjoy everything you do, and you keep me company even when we're not in person. And so
Yeah.
appreciate everything you do. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I appreciate it. It was good seeing you in Nashville too. We got to hang out a little bit at the SCI convention.
We did. That was fantastic. Nashville's so much fun, and SCI is just growing, and that city has been so welcoming, and it's just a fun time to get together with people. I feel like nowadays I just walk my legs off going from one place to the next, and it's so busy, busy, busy.
Oh yeah. So you're, I would say, I'm gonna guess maybe 10 years older than me, ish,
I'm
somewhere in there.
52,
Okay, I'm
52.
42.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, right on the
uh,
money.
yeah, and it was so cool because like I grew up listening to classic rock with my dad. Um, and we had Foreigner and 38 Special, on different nights playing. And these are like bands that I'm like, oh, my dad, this is like right in his wheelhouse, 70s, early 80s stuff.
It's it's
And
so funny you bring up.
all of the people, all the folks your age and even older were just, oh my God, they were having the blast.
I tell you, Cable, as the years go by, Jennifer and I don't get to go out and run around as much as we do and go to concerts. But boy, at the Spark Club convention, we have had some top name entertainment over the years, and it's been a lot of fun. And so,
Oh yeah.
absolutely, yeah, they were
Hmm.
great. A good lineup.
For sure. Um, yeah, that was so much fun. And I've been to conventions, plenty of them. I'd never gone to the banquets though afterwards. I always ended up just
Yeah,
going out to dinner with, my PH
sure.
and
Hmm.
clients, advertisers. But man, that was a blast. It was something new. So look forward
Oh,
to
love
the
it.
next time.
Love every bit of it.
So did you just get back from a mission trip?
I did. I did. I've had a busy spring. I mean, since mid-April, I've had four Dorper Sheep sales, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's kept me busy. The most recent one was the furthest one, all the way to Boise, Idaho.
Oh well.
Like 23 hours and probably a 3,000-mile round trip. But I had both champions and top selling sheep, and so enjoyed that. But yeah, in between all of this, with our Cornerstone School group, we take the junior and senior class on a mission trip to Guatemala every year, and so I've had the pleasure of going on a trip 4 times now, getting down there, in that tropical environment with the volcanoes smoking in the background, and here you're
Uh,
building houses for these poor people, and it's a very rewarding experience. It's some hard work. We put in some days, we put in some hard hours, but it is very enjoyable, and to get to do that with my son again was a lot of fun. It was a special time.
Very cool. Very cool. And I haven't been involved on like the day-to-day work on the ground from a mission standpoint in Africa, but you can see what the hunters dollars have done there. And I've given this example on the show before, but when I shot my buffalo, we went to the school and we took them a bunch of the meat, and they literally sang and danced in praise for the protein. But then I played soccer with these kids on a field that was bulldozed with $100. They drink water out
Hmm.
of a well that was dug with $100. They used to have to walk to the river to get their water. Now they have a well, you know?
Absolutely. And we see that, Cable, everywhere we go in Africa. And of course, the more remote you get, the more impactful those projects are. But yeah, you're talking about the meat distribution on one of those big game hunts. Oh gosh, some of the greatest comments I've had on social media is some of those videos or photos of something like an elephant being taken apart by 300 people,
Mhm.
and getting to see that impact. But yeah, the hunters' dollars going into these schools and clinics and things, people over there really love us. They love the
Yeah.
traveling folks that come from overseas, whether they're hunting or doing mission work. They really love us, and it's an endearing part of what we do. We're not just all out there pulling triggers. There's a lot
Yeah,
more to it.
absolutely. And I think that and I use that example a lot because I have video of us presenting the meat to those kids. And we have like
Yes.
five huge coolers, and we take it there. And the school administration is leading the. I mean, they're extremely thankful. Uh, but I show that to someone who's like, "You guys just go over there and kill stuff." Okay, well, there's a little more to it. Watch this video, and then they don't really have a reply, and it makes them think a little bit. I'm not saying that it changes their mind, but when you see the video evidence, like how can they dispute that? They can't.
Because Cable, the one thing we get criticized about, I mean, the first word out of people's mouths is when you talk about going to Africa or on some big hunt somewhere, well, what do you do with the meat?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, people, if you only knew. And what I boil it down to, in the first world, it's illegal to waste game meat. In the third world, it's impractical.
Right.
And leave it at that, because they just, and we want to continue and tell the story, but it's coming from such a place of ignorance. And if they went with us and they saw one of those buffalo getting taken apart by hundreds of people, it is something else, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're headed back with your son. Y'all are going to Zimbabwe.
We leave in a couple of weeks, and so we've been tuning up our guns and starting to pack and getting ready. And he's excited. It'll be his third safari to his third country, and this will be the big one, going to hunting buffalo in the Zambezi Valley, a place I've been many times and a place I really love and enjoy. And so, yeah, we've got all the plans in place, but boy, we're just pedal to the metal here at the ranch, trying to get everything organized so that we can leave for a couple of weeks and go have that great adventure over there.
Mm-hmm. And this is his, what did you say, his high school graduation present?
Yes. He
Okay.
just graduated from high school. He's a big track star, in the middle of all these sheep sales and business, had a state track meet, won the 800 and won the mile relay and placed well in some other things. And yeah, he's a good athlete. So I've already told the PH, the kid can shoot, and you're not going to have trouble with him keeping up with us. You may have trouble with me, but not him. He's a runner. So that's a benefit.
I don't understand. I'm in relatively good shape, and Carl, my PH, is maybe he's like 2 or 3 years younger than me. I can't keep up with that guy. He's like a mountain goat, and he doesn't look like he's in like top shape, right? He's not. Doesn't look like he's out of shape, but I'm just like, what?
There's a lot of guys like that over there, and you're like, oh, I can keep up with this guy, and he gets that pace going, and you're like, oh, I thought I was in shape, but man, we're going up a mountain here, and he is killing me. Yeah, so yeah, you want to be in as good a shape as you can be in to have a good time and a good trip. And of course, when you get in the dangerous game areas, I tell people, I recommend y'all get in as good a shape as you can get in. Go do everything you can do, because you can be far away sometimes. I've got a lot of stories about being far from the truck and long ways back. Maybe you run out of water. I mean, it can be tough. You got to be ready.
How many safaris have you been on to Africa specifically?
Coming up, I think this one is 20. I've kind of lost count, but yeah, I've been to Africa 20 times, and so I've gotten to go to 5 different countries and hunt. And of course, my other connection is the Dorper Sheep, and so I've also spent a lot of time on sheep ranches, out there in the country with the real people. And so that's what I always say about the things that I do. I'm very blessed and fortunate to get to spend time with the real people, whether I'm on somebody's sheep ranch or whether I'm hunting. And that's a big contrast to you go to some, photo safari place. You might have your people taking care of you, might be from somewhere far away, and you don't get the same feel. But as you well know, Cable, when you're hunting and you're with the people, I mean, you're learning their culture. You're sharing dinner with them in the way that they do it. And that's one of the great things about it. But no, I've been fortunate to go to Africa a lot. I got to go as a young guy, mid 20s, and back in 97, and it just changed the course of my life. The sheep happened to be in that area, so that's where I got to know about the Dorper sheep and came home and started that. But yeah, the safari gets in your blood, and boy, I'm a perfect example of that. Now I've been to 5 countries, and just fortunate to get to do what I do. I mean, I did 3 safaris in 3 countries last year. Not something I can do every year, but I did get to do that last year, and it's a lot of fun. But I've enjoyed the people and the places I've gone. A lot of it's solo, and in recent years I've taken groups of people with me to share in my experience and for what I've done, and that's been a whole nother dynamic. I'm happy to go and spend time in camp. I do have to admit, I was on a 21-day line hunt there in the Zambezi Valley by myself, and 21 days, yeah, you can get a little homesick on that deal. But most of the time, I enjoyed the people I meet, and whether it's a PH or a videographer or trackers, I just, you know how it is. You just strike up friendships with these people, and day after day, you just really enjoy their company. And so, to me, that's one of the things that we're fortunate to get to do, is to travel and meet people, learn a new culture. That's what I say about travel. You're going to learn a new culture, and that to me is something really special.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're even more connected, I would say, than the average hunter, because you brought these sheep back to Texas. and started your business with these sheep
That's
that
right.
are.
That's right.
And,
And you know, Cable, back in the day, back in the 90s, you know, I was roundly ridiculed for raising a sheep that didn't produce wool. And they said, "Oh no, that's not going to work and you're crazy." And I said, "No, no, no. These sheep will work. I've seen them in Africa and I've seen the kind of country they run in, and they do it all on their own. They have to make money. They don't get nobody's babysitting them." And I came home and I got so much animosity. And fast forward a few years, and Dorper's the number 1 breed of sheep in Texas. And you know, just almost any metric you can measure nationwide, Dorper's at the top. So,
uh-huh. Yeah.
um, you know, he who laughs last or whatever. But no, they're just a functional, efficient sheep, and you don't have to shear them. They're low maintenance, and they produce the best tasting meat. You know, that's one of the things we do get to eat some lamb chops in Africa sometimes, and boy,
Yeah.
they're good because most of the time they're Dorper.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I shot my kudu on a working sheep ranch. First safari. Probably my favorite hunt I've been on in Africa, and it was a 30,000 acre place. And the family, we stayed in their
Yeah.
ranch house, and we ate lamb chops for sure. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, but that goes back to they're happy to have those kudu on the place, and whatever
Exactly.
whatever other species they're managing because of the value that hunters put, American hunters by and large, put on those animals. So yeah, it supplements their ranching income, and
And,
they're
and you
happy
know,
to do it.
Cable, it wasn't like that back in the 50s and 60s. Back in the
Mm.
50s and 60s in Southern Africa, if you bought a new ranch, you had to go shoot all the game to get it off there because it was strictly competition for your cattle and sheep.
Mm-hmm.
And so, boy, have things have changed where you've got the stockmen are maintaining some game, you know, because they can make some money on them, and they see how they can balance their grazing and have a plan. And then of course you've got the places that are strictly hunting that, in my mind, have recreated wild Africa, and bought out their neighbors and made their places bigger and bigger, and have truly restored the ecosystem. So there's many different levels of how the economics of hunting have changed things. I mean, it's no different here in Texas, where obviously whitetail deer is number 1, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody, no matter if they're raising livestock or not, or exotics, whitetail deer is something you're keeping your eye on because that's what pays.
But that's been a shift in philosophy, like you said, from the 50s and 60s. They wouldn't go in there and kill everything off, and now
Yeah.
it's really helped bring the wildlife back to Africa, even on places where they share habitat with livestock. So,
And so
and you
much
tell
so,
that to an
Cable, that
anti-hunter, you want, okay, you don't want me to go over there and shoot animals. I get it. Do you want more wildlife? Because you really seem to be passionate about wildlife, even though you don't contribute a wooden nickel. You just say it, right? That's, you speak it into existence, therefore you care. Okay, I'll grant you that. Uh, you're full of crap, but let's play your game. Do you want more wildlife, or do you want more livestock? And if you want more wildlife, then you should get on board with what we're doing, because what's going to happen is it's going to be clear cut, and they're going to put livestock on it. And you can see places all over South Africa that vegetation is coming back, right? But at one time you're like, that was clear cut, obviously, because there was livestock
Mhm,
put there.
mhm,
And now a
mhm.
place where I hunt at the Woodlands is 30,000 acres, and at one point in time it was clear cut and it was a cattle ranch, and now they have all growth. It's, I'm sure the trees now are 30, 40 years old. When they've, I think that
Yeah.
probably early 80s, someone reinvested in the wildlife there. But
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, you see things change, and the guys in South Africa will tell you that the grazing dynamic is so interesting because they can run so many more of what we would call animal units with the
Mm-hmm.
wildlife, because it's natural. And I equate it to one of the big places I get to hunt on there in the Eastern Cape, where it's a big property, and you go to different parts of the property and you find different animals because they're in different habitats.
Right.
So it's not like just livestock that are going to graze wherever, but obviously your bush buck are down in the bottoms, and then your impala are more kind of in the more open, broken areas, and
Mm-hmm.
you see the animals in different parts of the habitat within one property.
Yeah.
And so the efficiency of grazing native wildlife is actually superior, and so
So
that's,
where do
to
you
me, is
go on the
very
East Cape?
interesting. So I've been hunting there near Alicedale with the Birchall family and Frontier
Okay.
Safaris. they're some
So
of
do
the
you
folks that I hunted with years ago and just kind of reconnected. And,
yeah.
you
Where do
know,
you fly into after Johannesburg?
Port Elizabeth.
Okay, so that's where I go to. And same thing,
Yeah.
like at their property, like I said, it's 30,000 acres. You see the fence when you come in and when you go out, basically. But they have like the plains up here on the top, and I would say that's probably 10,000 acres of the property. And then you start
Yes.
dropping off in these slow rolling hills, and then it becomes deeper ridges and valleys, and it's like lush jungle vegetation. And you'll have
Yeah.
all the blessed buck and the wildebeest and all of those species up on the plains, and then you see, like you said, bushbuck and kudu and all the other more secretive things that, and also it's dictated by feed. Those are,
Yes.
they're browsing on vegetation rather than grazing like a wildebeest. So that's really why they're there.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the terrain change and the animals change there. And one of the most dramatic stories I have was we were chasing some bush pig with dogs. And when I say chasing, I mean chasing. I mean, we were running for a mile or two. We wound up in this little ravine and with a little spring running and big yellowwood trees. And when you got up in there, you felt like you were like in a rainforest. It was
Right.
dark inside there. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I've been on this ranch so many times, but I've never been here, and it was so dramatic to get up in there. It was so cool. I'm so glad that my legs held out and I was able to chase that bush pig all the way up in there because it
Yeah.
was something to see. But yeah, the terrain changes. It's fan. You know, the Eastern Cape's a beautiful place. I've
Hmm.
been fortunate to hunt in a lot of different places, but it really is scenic. I mean, as you well know, it's just a really scenic place.
What would you say up to this point has been your favorite hunt in Africa?
That's easy, Cable. Hunting a wild lion in Zimbabwe is, to me, I call it hunter's Everest. You know, once you've been there, it's kind of hard because you really, in my mind, in my heart, that was one of those hunts that everybody asked me if it was a dream. I said, yeah, it was a dream of mine, but it was a dream I didn't think I'd ever get to have.
Right.
It was far fetched to be able to go on something like that. But for me to get to hunt a wild lion in Zimbabwe was truly a special moment that just was um, a big impact on my hunting career. And I don't I'm at a loss for words about it because when you see that lion come in, there's just not really anything like. I mean, I've shot two leopards, I've shot buffalo, a couple of elephant and stuff, but man, when that lion comes in, it's something that's truly hard to describe. And everybody asked me if I'll ever do it again. I at first I said no, and I'm still kind of saying no, but maybe I
Uh-huh.
might do it again someday. It is a truly special hunt, and I've loved I love every any day I'm out in the country hunting, whether it's here at the ranch or whether it's overseas. But that lion hunt is one of those things because it's a tough hunt. You know, it's a baiting hunt. You're playing the chess game, man. I mean, you're
Uh-huh.
trying to hang baits, and you got to hang big baits. You got to shoot a lot of stuff. I had to shoot a lot of hippos because if you don't have a big bait, they come and eat it. Well, they're gone. If they eat
Yeah.
it all, you want enough meat left so that they're fighting the hyenas off. You're that jealousy. Even if the meat's getting pretty rotten, that lion will stay there to keep the hyenas from getting it for a few
Uh,
more days. And so it's a chess game of any baiting hunt, but then the special trophy at the end is just something that's like I said, it's hard to put into words, to be honest.
hmm. Yeah, so we're like living in a different world as far as price goes, but I always said I would only do one mountain lion hunt. Because a regular like a lion, I don't know if I'll be like you said, you didn't know if you'd ever be able to do it. I don't know if I'll ever financially be able to do a lion or an elephant. But mountain lion, when I shot my mountain lion, I was like, I'm good. I don't think I'll do that again. No, I want to shoot another one. I loved hunting with the dogs, and when you're in the mountains in Colorado or Idaho or wherever, and yeah, I'm getting that itch, and it's been about 2 years I started getting the itch, and I'm like, I'm gonna do that again
Got to
for
go do it
sure.
again. Nothing
I
like
will.
being behind some dogs. Good
Yeah,
dogs, man.
yeah.
That's amazing.
And I hunt. We did. We got my caracal with dogs. That was super cool.
Mhm. Yep,
Um,
yep. Done that. Yep.
did blue diker with dogs over there, and I don't think
Hmm, hmm.
people do leopard hunts with dogs over there too. So,
Yep, I've done that too. Yeah, I've done
uh-huh.
it both ways. And the leopard hunt was one of those that didn't turn out so good. We got the leopard, but he got us. And so I said,
Mm.
bit my pH, and that's the whole story. But I told people after that, I said, one of these days, I want to go shoot a leopard out of a blind like a civilized person. And I got to do that last year. Day 9 of a 10-day safari, we played that
Huh,
chess game. We thought we were going to lose. And I finally got a big Tom
nice.
there in the Zambezi Valley last year. But yeah, hunting with dogs is a special time. I don't care what you're hunting.
Mhm, mhm. Um, what is your son's trying to get a Cape Buffalo, and you said he's
Right?
been he's been this will be his 3rd time. I'm taking Henry, July 2025 for his first trip, and he'll be 12. Uh,
Perfect.
so it's gonna be a new world for him, and I'm gonna live vicariously through that a little bit.
I look forward to hearing about that, Cable. There's something special about taking your son. I think Jasper was 13 when we went to Namibia a few years ago, and he's a good shot and did well, and even at that age. But I think that's one thing that like yourself and others that have been overseas start to understand that maybe you don't want to take them too young, but
Mhm.
those kids that are over 10 years old, there's really no reason you couldn't take them with you if you wanted to. You don't have to wait until they're 18. I mean, if you want to take them, take them. I mean, you know how it is. The professional hunters, the staff in these camps are so professional. They're going to take care of you
Yeah.
and your family and going to put you on a good day of hunting and come back and feed you well. And so I love the idea of taking kids, and you're going to make special memories. And I will be keeping up with that the whole
Mm.
time, hearing about y'all's plans.
Well, and I think for me, once he started shooting deer, I was like, okay, he could go to Africa. I think he shot his first one when he was 7. But then I've been in Africa with 7-year-olds, and physically, they can't. It has to be get out of the truck and shoot. And I'm like, I don't. I want him to be able to physically be on the hunt and
Yeah.
participate and earn it a little bit and suffer a little bit, right? I mean, there's something to be said. Like
Mhm. Yep.
he's shot everything out of a deer blind, right? I want him to spot and stalk and understand like it's not that easy. Like we do it back in Texas, and he has no idea what his dad does in the mountains when he takes a bow and goes elk hunting. And sometimes I get lucky, and most of the time I don't. But that kind of hell,
Well, I
you don't
bet you
know.
get Henry. I bet you get Henry on those shooting sticks. I bet you've already done it, and get him comfortable and teach him how to hunt. That's what I spend a lot of time doing, is trying to
Hmm.
coach people and tell them, get out of the blind. Get your gun sighted in, get out of the blind, get off the bench, go shoot off sticks, and even with the 22, just familiarity with sticks. It's not something
Hmm.
we do in Texas a lot. So shoot off those shooting sticks and get comfortable. And man, the people that I've helped and got them to really commit to sending some rounds downrange before the hunt off sticks, they're just not going to have a problem. They're going to have a great
Mm.
trip.
I have started shooting off sticks more the older I've gotten, because I now have I mean, I have the luxury of working with Armorsight. I get nice
Yeah.
thermals, and I shoot off sticks all the time at pigs in the wheat field at nighttime. Um, but yeah, that wasn't something I used to do. Um,
Yeah.
what would you say is, I guess, the most obvious thing? Let's talk about actually planning a safari, which I think is
Okay.
where going to be the gist of our conversation today, because I think a lot of people want to do it, and people reach a point where they're financially able to do it, but then they still sometimes
Right.
it's like me when I could have gotten a suppressor, but I waited because I was like, well, it just seems like a big hassle. Well, yeah, it's not really that big of a hassle. I should have done it 10 years ago, and I didn't. I wish I would have. I finally started getting suppressors about 2 years ago, and I think a lot of people feel the same way about international hunting. They're like, well, I could do it, but it seems like a real pain in the ass. And
That's a
uh,
great analogy, Cable. But you've made an excellent analogy there, because I know the same. I hear the same things about the suppressor as I do going to Africa, and I say I don't know what it is about all these big burly men in Texas that love to hunt and seem to be allergic to flying over salt water. And we
right.
want to be the solution to that and tell them, come on, guys, because all the people, once they get it in their mind that okay, I'm going, we've got a plan, and I'm going, and they get there and they realize from day one, and I've had people tell me this from day one, this wasn't that big a deal. Yeah, it's a long plane flight,
Mm-hmm.
but and I can't do anything about that. But they're like, this really wasn't that bad. But I really enjoy in the recent years, Cable, helping people, whether they're going with me or whether they're going solo or going with their own little group, helping them to stay out of the pitfalls of international travel and specifically travel with guns. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have made a video series to answer some of those people's questions, and I think it's been well received. But there's just a few steps in the process to get yourself ready and to go to Africa. But I don't know anybody who's gone over there and said, "Oh, that was too much trouble. I'm not going back." Once they get there,
Yeah.
they love it and enjoy it. But we have to back up and we have to make a plan. We have to select an outfitter. I did a video on that. We got to decide what we're going to hunt and what
Yeah,
gun
that's
we're
the
going to
first
take.
thing, right? Is the first thing you're gonna do is figure out what you want to hunt, where you want to go, and then you've got to vet outfitters and figure out. And that's
Mhm.
why going to a place like the Safari Club International Convention, every outfitter from that's anybody from Africa is going to be there. Like, and you can meet and
Absolutely.
interview. And I just got back from Argentina. You know what I did in 2022? I spoke to every red stag outfitter from New Zealand and Argentina that was there, and there had to be 25 or 30 of them. You know,
Right.
and I talked to
And
every
you
one
did
of them
your,
and found the one that I wanted to go with.
and there's nothing like that's exactly what I tell people too. I said, if you can get to one of the hunting shows and you can sit down with outfitters, have a general idea of your budget and what you kind of want to do,
Mhm.
and then go sit down with the people, see who you click with, ask the important questions, make yourself a list of questions, and go and sit down with those people. It's just going to save so much heartache down the road if there was to be any, and it can be with some of these people that book with somebody that they don't know anything about, and it might not be what they'd expected. When you get that personal connection at one of the hunting shows, you're going to be able to make a better decision, make the best decision for you and what you want to go hunt. I feel very strongly about that personal connection, and our hunting shows like Safari Club in Nashville is. I mean, that's the place, man. I mean, like you
Mhm.
said, you went 20 some outfitters before you selected yours for Argentina, and you can do the same thing with any of your, say an entry level plains game trip to Africa. You can go and find all those people and make your plan. But also, I tell you one thing, Cable, about that early stage. Some people have preconceived ideas of what they want to hunt, and I tell them, okay, that's fine, and I understand that, and I probably did too. But you can't appreciate some animals until you get over there and see the habitat they live in and how tough it is to hunt them. And my example of that is red hartebeest. Before
Mm.
I went on my first safari, I was like, I don't know about that thing. I get over there, I didn't see a red hartebeest. I only saw their dust, and I've seen
Yeah.
it's been that way on several places where they're very wary. And they've got like their vision is incredible, and so they're so difficult to hunt. It made it something that I want to go pursue every chance I get. Another example is the tinies.
Yeah.
So on these some of these hunting packages, maybe there's a diker on there. The guys on their first trip say, "Oh, I don't care anything about hunting a diker," but well, I just had an open mind on my first trip, and now here I'm trying to finish the tiny 10.
Right.
And so those animals can get in your blood, and not being too rigid on the animals you want to hunt, I think will pay you dividends. Maybe have a general idea, but leave it a little bit open, because depending on the area you're hunting, there may be some animals that are going to be a fantastic hunt and a great challenge, and ones you didn't think about.
Mhm. Yeah, I think one of my favorite examples of that would be a klipspringer, and he had to go up into the mountains because I think klipspringer means rock jumper
Yes.
when you translate it, and so they live in these
Hmm.
incredibly difficult places to get to, and it's a far shot on a little animal, uh, and then you get
They
up
do, and
to
they
it, and
have a
it's
way
like
of
the size of
boy.
a dachshund, and it's got these little, inch and a half horns, and your PH is like, that's a world class one, right? He's like,
That's
he's
a
so
big one.
excited. And I'm like, big one. Okay. Well, that's the other thing is you got to trust your PH. If he tells you uh, it's something that
You have to.
you should shoot, but he's not going to tell you that. At least, and you've gone through the process and you vetted him. If he doesn't want to put it on his wall, at least my PH isn't going to let me shoot it.
That's
So,
exactly right. Listening to your pH is so important. And but yeah, it's funny you mentioned those clip springers. Well, those things can get away from you. They run around the
yeah,
edge of the hill and jumping through those rocks, and they're gone. And so that's a challenging little animal. It took me a couple of tries to get one. And then you got to be careful where you shoot them because their hair is so finicky and can blow out. It's like
yeah,
quills. It's like hollow hair, and so you got to be careful. Almost have to gut shoot them. You have to be real careful. So there's a lot of dynamics about some of these animals that you wouldn't know until you've been over there. And then you get sitting around the fire and talking to people like, wow, I didn't know that about that animal. Maybe I should go try for one. And so not being too rigid in your list, I think will pay you dividends. And probably I would recommend a package hunt for somebody on their first hunt. That's what I did. And a lot of people have enjoyed that. And that would give you some of the ones that you're after and maybe a few extras and maybe
Do
give
you
you that
feel like, though,
flexibility. And
let me ask you this. Do you feel like with the package hunt, it puts pressure on the outfitter to try to get you to shoot something that maybe not be as high a quality?
it can, and that's that day one conversation with your PH
Uh-huh.
that you need to be very frank about it. What I always tell people about these safaris is it's a custom hunt for you. You have your own PH and your own tracker and your own vehicle, and you're going to,
Your own dog.
yeah, your own dog. You're
Mhm.
going to have that conversation day one and really try to lay it out. Tell him what's most important, and if there's something on the list that you say you're just not shooting, then tell him that. Now, you're in my estimation, you might change your mind by the end of the hunt and want to
Mhm.
hunt that animal. So, to answer your question, yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's a pressure on the team there to try to get you every animal on your package because they want to be proud that you did well, and they're going to feel like if you left one off and that maybe they feel like, well,
Yeah.
we didn't do our job, and
I
so
was just
but
curious because
those are all
I
those
haven't
conversations.
been on one of those, and the folks I go with don't offer that. They're like, if we don't put you on an absolute trophy, then you're just sorry, you don't get your
Mhm,
animal.
mhm, mhm,
But they're
mhm,
honest about it and they're transparent. It's like
mhm,
we're going to do everything we can to get you that opportunity on what you want. That's
mhm,
at the top of your list. But then
mhm,
they don't feel obligated to have you shoot, a lesser quality or a younger
mhm,
bull or
mhm,
whatever it is. But yeah, I was just curious. Um,
yeah.
so transitioning here to transitioning, that's a funny word in 2024.
Oh gosh. Yeah,
Switching
yeah.
gears here, let's talk about traveling with firearms because that's a major component. And I've been to 4 different countries and 3 continents in the last calendar year. And some of them were very easy. Mexico, oh my gosh, my outfitter had everything done. I showed up, they checked the serial number of my gun and my scope. Boom, you're good to go. No problem. Uh, Went to Canada. Canada's the absolute worst. Can't stand it. Taking a
Oh
gun to
man.
Canada, they treat you like a criminal, which is so weird because it's just across the border. But it's pain in the butt. Canada, Argentina. That outfitter advised us not to bring guns because there was 8 of us, and he said the amount of time you're going to be at the station trying to check them in at the airport, you might miss your connecting flight. So we didn't. All the
Right.
PHs there had their own guns, their own trucks, everything. So we used theirs. South Africa, not a problem. It's a little
Yeah.
bit, and you even said in one of your videos, it might take an hour here at the airport. Hour's not a big deal when you're talking about being comfortable for an entire safari and using what you're familiar with. So South Africa is very, very easy in my opinion. But when you
Mhm.
start the process, um, the first thing you got to do is go get a 4457 form.
Right.
And like I go to the little municipal airport in McKinney, and there's a wherever there's a customs officer is where you get it done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the first
And for
thing.
me, and for me out here in the Wild West, I got to drive an hour and a half to Midland to do it and make an appointment and all of that. So it's not quite so easy for us. But no, it's a good point, Cable. And it's probably the biggest question I get is all the logistics of taking a gun overseas.
Mhm.
And there's a few little hoops to jump through ahead of time, but in reality, it's going to make your hunt go so much better. And what I recommend, first of all, is use a travel agent that specializes in hunters that are traveling with rifles. Those fees are very minimal when you compare your cost of your hunt and everything you're doing.
I think mine's
They
like
can also
$225.
right, it's a couple $100 give or take, and they're gonna know nowadays information is readily available. They can't always get you a better deal on the flights, but I did this year. My
Mhm.
travel agent got me a half price deal on something I couldn't find, and so that's one side of it. But also, they put your gun on your electronic ticket, and so there's no surprises any step of the process. And then going and getting your 4457, which South Africa is a little finicky. They want it dated in the year of the hunt, whereas in years past, we'd have them laminated with our main gun that we always traveled with and keep the same 4457. Now we do have to go, in the year of the hunt and have it stamped Get that. That's your main thing, and then you'll get an invitation letter from your outfitter. Those are the key things you need to get your hunting license in most countries. But really, like you mentioned, that I said in the video, you get your paperwork ahead of time. And when you're traveling, yes, there's a stop here and maybe a little inconvenience there. But on an international itinerary, you're going to have long layovers, and it's not going to be a big deal at all getting through places with guns. It's one of the things that I'm passionate about, because I feel like you're missing out when it is not like Argentina where it's difficult. Obviously, that's a different story, and there's other places like that. But somewhere like Southern Africa, where it's not hard to get the gun in there, and you hear people talking, "Oh, it's too much trouble, I'm not going to do it." Well, I just say that's nonsense. Just do the steps of the process. Take your own gun, and you're going to have a much better safari. I mean, we're going on these just a plains game hunt. We're doing a 10-day. Most all the time. So 10 days with your own gun versus 10 days with a rented gun. And I can tell you, I've got a big contrast in the people that hunt with me that take their own gun versus the ones that borrow one. We had not such good results with one group where several of them chose to rent a gun, and they did not do well. And so I think if you just ask your outfitter, get a travel agent, follow the steps in the process. It's really not hard to take that gun overseas. I cover a lot of things in that video about how to pack it, how to pack your ammo and those sort of things. It's once you realize what the rules are, it's very straightforward. And it's very easy to do. Get your good gun case, good ammo box, and do your paperwork and enjoy your trip.
My travel agent's annoyed with me right now, and I've used Ann over at Hunter Support for my seventh trip, and I've used her. There was one time I took a bow, and I didn't need to use her. But all the other times I've used her, and I'm like way late. I leave July 8th, and it's June, second week of June. She's pissed at me. She still loves me. But
for South Africa,
I booked my own flights though, and I typically do that. And I sent her my itinerary the other day, and she's like, "Come on, dude, your flight from Johannesburg back." So on my return trip, she's like, "Your flight back to Doha, Qatar, it takes off before you arrive back in Johannesburg from Port Elizabeth." He's like, "You've got your flights all wrong." Like,
oops.
Yeah. So but I sent it to her immediately upon booking, because with thankfully my airline, Qatar, if you cancel within 24 hours, it's free, regardless of whether you did any kind of insurance or whatever. So she saved me big time from having to pay like a flight change fee or something. So that right there saved me the $200 and something. Plus, she's going to have all my paperwork done for me when I arrive in Johannesburg. A guy, likely named Alpiro, he's the one that I've usually met there. He will meet me there, and he will walk me to the police station. We'll do all the paperwork, which literally takes 5 minutes, and then he will make sure we get on our connecting flight to Port Elizabeth without any hiccups.
That's a good point. So in South Africa, they do have there's several services like the one you mentioned that will do a pre-approved rifle permit for you, and that's well worth doing. It's not very expensive. I think it's about $160 most of the time, give or take. And like you said, when you get there, there's somebody to meet you. You go in the police office, you literally open your gun case, show them serial number, and you walk out the door with your paperwork.
The police office is in the airport. That's the point. You don't have to leave, and it's not this huge field trip.
No, you just come right out to the meet and greet area and turn right in Johannesburg and just take a few steps down that direction, and you're at the police office, and there's friendly people there to help you. And even for a person who didn't do the pre-approved, if they had their all their paperwork handy, most of the time it's not too bad. It's just if there's several of you and they're all having to do it on the spot, it could take hours. But we're also flying. You mentioned Qatar. We're also flying on Qatar. We've used different airlines, but Delta and Qatar are pretty much the go-to for me for Southern Africa. Like I said, my travel agent got me a good deal on business class, so I'm going to be a little spoiled sitting in the front for once, but I've gotten to do that a couple of times. But most of the time, I'm happy to sit in the back. I just want to go. But the Middle Eastern airlines are easy. They've got one piece of paper, gun paperwork, as you well know, not too hard to manage, and then you're on your way.
Well, I did not get to do the business class upgrade. So my buddy, because that's like, again, I look at how many animals I could shoot for the price of a business class ticket. I'm just like, no, I can't do that. But then my buddy upgraded me with his points. He's done very well in life. He's like, you just buy your economy ticket and I'll just upgrade you. I was like, okay.
Nice.
That was like 4 years ago. And then the first thing I did was come home and get an Amex and start putting everything on there. And so the last couple times I've been able to just split the difference. I buy the economy ticket and then I upgrade myself. And I spend the whole year trying to get the points just to go
Yes.
business class. But then this year, dude, I looked at the flights. They were $10,000, $11,000. Where last year they were $5,000, and I'm like, oh, back of the bus for me.
I know it. I know it. That's
A
what I'm
man of the
saying. I mean,
people.
I was so fortunate. We were seeing 8,500 and all this, and my guy got me one for 4,300, and so
Oh my
he
gosh.
just, he just hit the home run. It's got to be in that price range. I'm not paying the high prices.
Yeah.
I want to go. I'll sit in the back. I don't care. But if
Mm-hmm.
you can get one for somewhere in that 4 to 5, I would say that's pretty much the sweet spot for something that's
Yeah.
worthwhile. And as you know now, some of those international airlines like Qatar, if you sit in the front, they're going to spoil you so bad it's going to scramble your brain. I
Yeah.
mean, if you've flown on coach as many times as I have in the back of the plane, it's just like, oh my goodness, it's
Yeah.
the difference is unreal. Um, but regardless, it's a long trip. It's a
Yeah.
long trip. You want to do what you can to get to be comfortable. And I tell you one thing, even for people in economy, if they can try to get their seats up towards the front of the plane, you know how it is when you get off the plane and it's a big
Mm.
rush to get luggage and get to the get the gun stuff done. Even if people can get in economy and get towards the front, it's going to make a big difference in how long it takes you to get through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about travel routes. So you're flying Qatar, so you're going through Doha, and then you're flying to Johannesburg. That's about a 13, 14-hour flight, and then a nice 9-hour flight, and then a 2-hour
Right.
flight.
Yeah.
It really gets, the longest one is on the way back because you're flying into the wind, and it goes from 14 hours to 17 hours. At least I was looking at my itinerary. I was like, oh my God, that was a 17-hour flight. But that is the only negative thing, and that's just one thing that you can't change. Is it is a full 24 to 36 hours of travel.
It
What it
is.
is.
And, Cable, it's funny you mentioned that. That itinerary there with Qatar, there's something really special about getting on a plane in Dallas, Texas, and flying somewhere far, to a foreign country. Like I've
Uh-huh.
done it to Sydney, Australia one time, and it's a long ways on an airplane, but there's something about getting on a plane in our case, our home state, and then being able to go that far. But Cable, talking about these timelines of these flights, these are nothing. Back in the day, we flew on a 747 out of Miami or Dulles, and you'd have to land on an island and refuel. And some of those, if I remember correctly, were 20 and 22 hours in
Oh
an
wow.
airplane getting to South Africa,
Mm.
because you'd go that first one I went on, we were Miami to, I guess it's Tenerife, refuel hour and a half, and then on down, and then on the way back, the winds and those planes aren't as efficient, and of course you're going out of your way to go to the island to refuel, versus nowadays with these A350s and all this and going straight and fly. They're flying a lot faster too. These planes
Mm.
fly 500 miles an hour now. They didn't do that back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this: there is a silver lining because it makes an 8-hour flight to go hunt axis deer in Hawaii or an 8-hour flight to Buenos Aires. That's a drop in the bucket. My buddies were like, "This sucks, man," and I'm like, "This is nothing, man. Watch 2 movies and take a nap. You'll be fine." It's a piece of
That is
cake.
so funny, and it's so true. Cable, Jennifer and I went on an anniversary trip to Bora Bora a while back, and I bought it with the miles, off the credit
Mm-hmm.
card, and I was trying to get business class because it was a big 25th anniversary or whatever it was, and LA to Tahiti. I couldn't get it. We had to sit in economy,
Uh-huh.
but it was a nice Dreamliner, and I kept telling her, I said, "How do you like your free seat?" But that 8 hours, nothing. Once
Yeah.
you've been on these long ones, it's absolutely nothing. You're like, watch a
Piece
couple
of cake.
movies. We're there.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about going back to the guns. We talked about the paperwork side. Best thing you do, get a travel agent. It's not very expensive considering how much you're already investing in this trip anyway. But actually transporting the gun safely, and by safely I mean I'm not talking about something an accident. I mean like get your gun there so that
Mhm,
you're ready to take it out, shoot it,
mhm.
sight it in, make sure it's still zeroed, and then go hunting.
Yep. Okay. Well, what I recommend, and there is plenty of decent options these days. It's just I've seen problems with most of them, And so I do recommend Pelican. Pelican cases have never let me down, and mine's all scratched up, been all over the world. But what I do is I use a Pelican 2-gun case, and again, there's some that are similar
I
and
have
decent quality.
a Boyd case, which is
Boyd are good.
very good.
So what I do is I take out that middle foam and put my 2 rifles typically in soft cases. So talking about being ready to go when you get there, put the scopes pointing inward, not outward. That soft case is going to protect your gun in addition to the hard side Pelican case or similar case. And that way, when you get there, everybody likes the cutout foam, and that's so cool, but that's okay. But you're going to need to have a soft case and put that in your suitcase, and that takes up more space. I keep it pretty simple. I've got 2 rifles on most hunts, my double gun, and then 300 or 375, depending on what I'm doing. And those are in soft cases. Then I've just got a gear bag with just a few gun cleaning supplies and odds and ends that are pertinent to that
video.
Yeah. If I'm going somewhere where I'm allowed to take that, that's where it'll be. I feel like that's a better
right?
solution. No,
Okay.
you can't.
So I have never taken one to Africa, but I am taking mine to South Africa this year for the first time. I'm stoked about that.
Yeah, you just have to. I always recommend everybody, check the regulations. Sometimes things can change. Make sure you got everything right. But it hasn't been a problem in the past, and so it is. We all like to hunt with a suppressor, and I'm partial to my Thunder Beast Ultra 5, which is so small that you hardly know that you have it. But the one thing that you can't do, and this is gets people riled up, that like the Tough Pack cases, which are cool design. You can't put clothing in the gun case now. That was the case years ago with some airlines in Europe we heard about, and then but recently in South Africa, for whatever reason, they're saying no, and I think they're afraid you're hiding something. So there's no clothing allowed in the gun case. Which for some styles of gun cases can be problematic. But I had a friend with me last year checking in San Antonio, Texas with Delta, and he had a jacket or a couple of things in his gun case, and they right then and there they made him take it out.
I wonder if that's the same with a bow, because I have a nice bow case for international or wherever. If you're flying anywhere, it doesn't even have to be international. It's the same process. You want to protect your stuff. Man, I loaded that thing up with so much, with my jackets, all my heavy clothes. I didn't have any issue, but I don't. There's obviously a difference. You don't have to go through the same declaration process with archery equipment that you do with a firearm. So
yeah, it probably wouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't think, because it's not a firearm, so it wouldn't be a problem. But being aware of some of these things, like we're talking about the clothing in the gun case, that's one of those things. Paying the travel agent $200, they're up on anything that changes. And of course, we've also got the Safari Club, the Hunter Information Service with Barbara Crown, and she's always up on things. So if people have questions about things before they go on a trip like this, in case something has changed, those are the go-to resources. Your travel agent, and then an SCI with Barbara Crown. She's got all that information as well, and it's one of the ones that will alert us if something changes.
So you take 2 rifles, traditionally. And I just take 1. I haven't taken 2. So I have my foam cut to the rifle specifically. Do you ever see any problem with that, or you just do it your way because you're taking 2 guns?
Not normally. As far as protecting the gun, I believe it's fine. I haven't seen problems with that particularly. To me, it's more of the logistics thing of having had that soft case in the suitcase. But no, I mean, when you're opening the case and showing them your serial number, if you have it just right there in the foam, it's easy to pop it up and show them that serial number and put it down. And so everybody kind of has to decide what works for them. I just try to illustrate to people what I do. And for me with the 2 guns, normally that's because I've got a double. Normally, like if I'm just strictly plains game, it's a 300 Winchester. If I'm in Zimbabwe, and maybe it's just a 375. But I've been hunting with a double more as the years go by, as you can imagine. And so it's going with me most anywhere now.
Is your son shooting that gun?
No, he's shooting. Oh, here's the cool thing. So we both got Blaser R8s. He's left eye dominant, shoots left-handed. So for years, he's been shooting a Blaser R8, 7 mag, done well since he was a little boy. And now we just put my 375 barrel on his gun and getting him all ready to go. And from day one, he's shooting great. I mean, he put 2 in the bullseye out of 3 free-handed the other day at 100. I mean, he can shoot so well because, see, it's his gun just with a different barrel.
Right.
And it's such a good plan. It's worked out so well for me and him to be able to do that. But he's not shooting the double on this trip. I think he's going to stick with a 375 for his buffalo hunt, and I think that would be a more prudent choice. But I'll be there as the backup with my Craig off. So
Yeah.
see
I shot
how things go.
my buffalo with a 375 Ruger with a scope.
Yeah.
75 yards. When I went to Argentina, the number one thing was get a nice red stag. Then they have Asiatic water buffalo there. And so that was the thing that was really appealing to me, having hunted Cape buffalo. I was like, well, this is a close relative, and they're not as ornery and like angry as Cape buffalo, but they damn sure don't let you just walk up to them. And they were actually hard.
Right.
I mean, they were very hard to get on. There's so many eyes on you in this thick stuff that reminds you of South Texas, really. But obviously I didn't take a gun with me, so I didn't take my Mossberg. And so the PH, I guess he had a lot of faith in me because he saw me shoot the red stag and was like, he didn't even blink. He's like, hey, tomorrow we're going for water buffalo. I'm thinking he's like, I have an open sight rifle for you. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to go to the range. No, he just is like, all right, let's go. Like, okay, hopefully this thing is dialed in, like it's pretty straightforward. 60 yards open sight. And that was, I think that was a 375 H&H as well. But that water buffalo was so tough. I don't know if you listened to that Argentina recap episode.
I did.
My goodness, that thing ate ammo. It was just eating lead and wouldn't die. Whew,
yeah, that would be the
ammo.
one I would love to. I'd love to go with you to Argentina, but yeah, if I'm going to go for that water buffalo, man, I'd be tempted to try to get my double and take it with me.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible. I think we can make it happen. Let's talk about ammo though, because that's another sticking point. And the ammo, when you go, and you said this in your video, when you go to Alaska or even Mexico, it just depends. But your ammo can just be in the gun case as long as it's in a factory box, right? It has to be in that. That's the caveat.
Yeah.
And I have a cutout where I put. Usually on those hunts, I just take 2 boxes. Obviously, going to Africa, I think I'm going to take between 80 and 100 rounds just in case. Probably end up using 10 of them, right? But but I'm going to have them. And tell me if I'm wrong here. The ammo little can has to be separate, and it has to be locked, and that can go in your suitcase. But I think I know this is true. Once I get to South Africa and I'm getting on the Airlink flight, they make me take it out of there and they make me check it separately.
They do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, starting off, you got to have a locked hard side, Pelican style case for your ammo. And what I illustrate is just appropriate size. And you can buy those used on eBay. You don't have to buy a new one. They could get beat up anyway. But your ammo needs to be in boxes. I had somebody message me last year, and he reloads a lot, and he just had a hard side case full of loose ammo. I said, no, it can't be like that.
Right.
It's got to be in a container, whether it's the original box or like the reloaders have their own little boxes that they use and put those inside the Pelican, for instance. Lock that, put it in your suitcase. It's a rule, but it's a little hit and miss once you get to South Africa, whether you're going to have to take it out or not. Most of the time you do. And so that's when it needs, like I say, a luggage tag. It needs to be a locked hard side case with a luggage tag on it, just like you're checking it. And so on Airlink, which is the one we use because they're gun friendly for the most part, they do charge a fee. And that is one of the hassles in the airport in Africa, is that the ticket agents can't take money. So if you got to pay for overweight baggage or a rifle fee, you've got to go over to the business office.
Right.
That is one aggravation, but it has nothing to do with the rifle. Excuse me.
My buddy Alpiro is there for that whole process, and he just takes us over there and sorts us out.
And it's easy. It's usually right, whatever airport you're in. It's usually right there close by. And pro tip, you can always ask to upgrade on Airlink and see. Sometimes $20 you can sit in the front. So up to you for an hour, 2-hour flight. But yeah, that case is going to come out. On the way back, we often try to sweet talk them and see if you're like connecting straight through. We try to sweet talk them, see if they'll let us put it in the suitcase for the way home, so there's not three showing up in Atlanta or Dallas.
Yeah.
That again, that's hit and miss. I've been able to talk them into that on the return on several occasions, but not 100% of the time. So be prepared for that ammo box to come out. And I've heard of somebody even having them make them leave it out, leaving the U.S., but that's incorrect. That's not a requirement from any airline here. But they in Southern Africa, they sometimes go by European rules, and I think it's a European thing to have the ammo in its own thing, checked separate. They're not supposed to charge you. Airlink's not supposed to charge you for the ammo box, but they do charge you. Your suitcase can only be 44 pounds, a rifle case 33 pounds. Anything over that, you pay a luggage overage, and then of course you pay a small fee for a rifle handling fee.
I've
So
gotten
you
pretty
go there.
good at picking up my suitcase and saying that's
Me too.
47
Yeah.
pounds. Like you do it
Yes.
enough, you're like, and then I stand on the scale with it. And I'm like, well, I was off by 1 pound, but I pretty much know if it's going to be over or under. And then
I had good fun with some of my safari groups the last couple of years doing that, getting their luggage and estimating it. I'm like you, I could be within a pound, and
yeah,
they were just marveling at how I was like, well, you do it all the time. You know what 50 feels like, and you know what 47 feels like. You're like, I think I'm okay on this one, and this one, I'm like, oh, you're a little much. You better check that one.
yeah,
It's fun.
yeah. So there. Oh, and also you need to have, and I do the same thing as you mentioned in the video you made, but TSA approved locks. You need to have one for each hole in your gun case. You're going to need one for your ammo case, for your ammo can. And so make sure you have that. And then you would even advise to carry extras because, and this has happened on hunts where I've been on. Some of my buddies have just had their locks gone. Like TSA just didn't put them back on, or they just cut them off or whatever. So you need
It's
to
usually
have.
in Africa. It's usually in Africa they get cut off. But yeah, Cable. This is the one where people want to almost fight me over the TSA locks because some people are just passionate that you're not supposed to have a TSA lock on a gun case. And I've read the regulations, and that's not the case.
I've only ever used them.
I only use TSA locks because I don't want to be fumbling around wondering if my gun case has been if it was inspected a second time, which it usually is for international. I just don't want to be worried about that, my gun case getting left. And to think that you have some kind of special security, I think is nonsense these days. I mean, if they want in your stuff in Africa, they just cut your locks off,
Right.
and we've seen it a lot. That's why we have to have extra locks. I don't think they get cut off in the U.S. I think it's overseas, but you'll hear those stories once or twice a year where somebody had hard luck, and good thing they had enough locks. But TSA has made it hard on us because they want to lock in every hole, and I can only assume that this is from those really lightweight, flimsy gun cases like you take to the range but not take overseas.
Yeah.
Getting opened somehow or messed up. And so on the Pelican, I was able to cut off two of those lock holes. They're just plastic and make mine back into just a 2-lock situation. And so that's one thing people can choose how they want to go. But there's
I highly
nothing.
recommend the 2-lock over because I had one when I first started going. The first international hunt I did was a bear hunt in Canada, and I had those flimsy cases you're talking about. That's what I had, and it had 4 locks on it. And on the way back, so I got there fine, did the hunt, everything was cool. And on the way back, they're giving me all kinds of hell because I have 4 holes and I only have 2 locks. And they're like, "Oh, I can like stick a little screwdriver through this." I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "So this isn't gonna." I had to find somewhere to buy locks at the airport. It was a big deal. I almost missed my flight.
So the TSA locks are okay to use according to the regulations on rifle cases, and they do give you peace of mind that at least on this side, if somebody needs in there, they can get in there. But if somebody doesn't want to go that route, that's fine. But I just say use a combination lock because I've been separated from my gun before and was able to relay over the phone what the combination was. They're able to do whatever inspection, and my gun caught up to me. If you've got key locks and you get separated from your gun's never catching up to you. And that's just the way it is. And that could be hard luck. But we have to be, when it comes to international travel, you got to be planning for contingencies. And for me, the TSA locks, and I get the heavy duty ones. There's a couple different brands now. The one I was using, because I think it was the first one I could find, was called Snap Safe. But there's some other brands now that have a heavy duty one, and it's hard to see in the pictures, like on Amazon and stuff. Some of those little tiny ones that you wouldn't want to use obviously for a gun case, but get the heavy duty ones, and and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a problem at all. I mean, they all wear out. If you go as much as I do, those locks just have to take extras. They're going to wear out. They get beat around. The people throw those cases, and
Oh
you know
yeah,
how it is.
that's a good point. They don't care about your gun or your bow,
Mm-mm,
so that's why
mm-mm,
you can't really skimp on the quality of the case and how much
mm-mm,
protection you're going to pay for. Here's a $40 case. You're going to get $40 worth of
mm-mm.
protection. Like it's
Yeah,
not really.
yeah.
It's a plastic shell around your gun, which you're taking on a multi-$1,000 hunting trip. Probably not a good
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Yeah.
So what about flight routes? And I'll just tell you the ones the ways I've gone. I've gone through on
Mm-hmm.
Emirates a couple times through what is the Dubai.
Dubai, Dubai.
Uh-huh. And then
Mm-hmm.
I've gone 3 times now on Qatar, and then I've gone once on American. I'll never do. And I went through London Heathrow, and they treated me like a criminal because I had a firearm there. And I think maybe that was years ago. I wonder if I asked Ann. I think Heathrow's probably on the don't go that way anymore route. Like from a travel agent's perspective, they would tell you don't go through Amsterdam, don't go through Heathrow. I think a lot of people used to go through Germany. I don't know if they still do that.
Frankfurt, yeah, some
Uh-huh.
do. Yeah.
But
No, there's a lot of different ways to go, and of course, I've been fortunate to get to do it different ways. I mean, I think it was American Airlines back in the '90s, all the way. But the most unique one I think was South African Airways when they were in business. You know, you go Dulles or JFK over, and you stop in Ghana or Senegal, and then get down there. But those were kind of cool because you know the flight attendants have the African flag on their uniforms, and you get on the plane in the U.S. and you feel like you're already in Africa getting on the plane. But of course they're defunct now as far as international. Well, they're trying to come back, but they're mostly a regional now in
Mhm.
Southern Africa. But right now, I'm not going through New Jersey or New York with a gun. If you go through with a suppressor or a pistol, you're a felon if something happens and you
Hey, you
wind up
can
having
join
to take
Trump.
possession. Yep. If you wind up having to take possession of your suitcase and there's a pistol or a suppressor in there, you're instantly a felon in New York and New Jersey. So I'm just going to avoid that. And so basically, I'm like you. I'm at Middle Eastern carriers or Delta,
Mhm.
or what we're doing right now. So right now for us, but due to the timetables, it's been Qatar or Delta.
Mhm.
Last year I did Delta twice, um, and of course that's been a go-to for years. Of course, got to sit in their Premium Select on that trip. That's a really good product if the price is right.
Yeah.
To me,
Is it
I've
how
got to
does
be
that rate
around.
against the Q Suite from Qatar?
Oh no! This is just premium economy.
Oh, okay.
Nothing in the
Okay.
world, as far as a true business class product, nothing in the world compares to Qatar's Q Suite.
Right.
I mean, they give you soup and champagne and lobster. I ate lobster twice on one of those
Right.
trips.
I'm sending
I mean,
I
no,
had
nothing
the
compares.
Wi-Fi and I was sending my wife pictures because I'm in this lavish, like it's so foreign to me. Like I don't belong up here, right? And I'm like, "Oh, I had Chilean sea bass for dinner." And she's like, "What the?" But I only had that cuz I ate steak earlier. Like
Well, Cable, I have a funny story about Qatar Q Suite. So, I've gone a lot and sat in the back of the plane almost every time.
Mhm.
And a couple, 3 years ago, whatever it was, I guess it's 3 years ago now, I got in the Q Suite, Delta 2021, still COVID, and Delta canceled, and we had to shift our plans, and we got in there for a very good price. And I literally walk on that plane, Cable, and I'm just laughing uncontrollably when I see
Yeah.
my suite there. I'm just laughing because I'm like, this is so foreign to me. Just like you said, I've never dreamed of something like this.
Yeah.
But it is fantastic if you can swing that. Delta is a go-to because of direct connection, especially if some of the folks are kind of eastern part of the U.S. They're going to be easier for them on
Mhm.
Delta. But the
Cuz you're going to
business
fly out of
class,
Atlanta on
you're
that
going to
one.
fly Atlanta Johannesburg nonstop on an A350. Um, you have the issue there of, it seems like there's all these road warriors that fly for Delta and they save their miles for years and years and years because they know how arduous the journey is to South Africa. And so those business class seats on the Delta One on Delta are outrageously expensive, routinely over $10,000.
Yeah.
And they're not getting that in cash. They're
My
getting
buddy that
the
is going
mileage
with
deal.
me, my buddy that's going with me in July, like it was 11 grand, And I just told him,
It
I'm
wasn't
gonna
good.
pay 2,200 and fly economy on Qatar. I was like, and even Delta's economy was double what Qatar was.
This year was bad. I mean,
Mhm.
this year was real bad. So like that premium select I'm talking about is their new premium economy. It is good, but to me, it's good at about 3,000. Maybe if I was just really wanting to spend some money, 3,500 is absolute top dollar.
Mm.
This year, it's been showing as high as 6,000. But yeah, we're
So
flying on Qatar Q Suite for 4,300. No, thank you.
yeah,
But Delta's economy should be 1,800, 2,000, and then Comfort Plus, which is the 4 inches of leg room on Delta on that Delta plane, which is a good option to me. The sweet spot.
mm.
It's supposed to be $200 each way more, so going to put you at 2,500 probably, and that's a good price. I mean, that's a good normal price. But what's normal these days?
Right.
Um, that's hard to say. But that's the four classes of service on Delta that you get to choose from. On Qatar, it's strictly business economy, and then you go to Emirates, and you could, depending on your plane, you could have first, business, premium economy, and economy. But those flight timetables have been, the layovers have been wrong for us, so that's why we've
Yeah.
been on Qatar. I'd love to go on Emirates, and I wouldn't mind their business class, which is like 232 or 242. You had something I have to climb over somebody, but to me, I'm
Yeah.
like, I want the cheapest business class I can get with the lie flat. I don't care what I have to climb over if it was
If you
cheaper.
can lay
But
down.
now,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you can lay down,
That's
that's
the
all I
key.
want.
Yeah. Well, I have only good things to say about experiences on Emirates and Qatar. Very wonderful airlines. People are the staff is exceptional.
I tell you,
Um,
we had one thing, Cable, on Qatar that was an eye opener. I think it was last year. So they have this form that you fill out for your gun, and
mm,
you check in with them, and it's called the Declaration of Surrender. And so it's a form with all your information and your flight information, and it's basically giving them the right to carry your gun in their mind, I guess. And we had one of the guys, we were joking with him that we'd seen downstairs, and now he's upstairs when we're boarding the plane. And one of my guys was joking with him, saying, "Well, we hope our guns get on the plane." He said, "Sir, when you sign the Declaration of Surrender, this plane is not leaving without your guns."
huh.
It's like they take it really, really seriously, is what he was indicating. And so that was a comforting thing to be told right before you get on a 15-hour flight.
But so Qatar also has this thing, and I only know this because my buddy Arturo's guns didn't get to go. He was coming from Houston, and our travel agent told us you need to email Qatar and just tell them that you're traveling with guns and send them the letter of invitation from John X Safaris. I did that. I think I just got an email that said you're clear. He never did it, and he gets there to the counter, and they're like, "Sir, your guns, you can't bring them." He's like, "What are you talking about?" And I told him ahead of time. I was like, "Art, you have to do this." Send him the email, and he just didn't do it. So
That's why I pay the travel agent the $200, so I
mhm.
don't ever have to do that. So people ask me how to do that, how to call in and all that, and I just tell them I don't know. I pay the travel agent.
Right,
And
yeah,
yes, there's a phone number, and there's an email that you're supposed to send in copies of your paperwork, and then you're good to go. There is a window of time to do it. You can't do it too far ahead of time. You can't do it too close to the flight. And so those things would just be logistics you'd have to look up if you wanted to do it yourself. It's
mm,
not impossible to do it yourself. Just do the proper homework. I'm just going to pay the travel agent $200, and I'm gonna be
yeah,
home shooting off
yeah.
sticks and getting ready to hunt instead of worried about my guns.
Um, as far as your regular luggage, you pack whatever you want. But I just think there's one important thing to point out. And I had a guy go to Argentina with me, and his bag got lost, and he hunted for 3 days in blue, like khaki pants, and a vest and a short sleeve shirt and tennis shoes. And I told the guys, you need to have at least one pair of hunting clothes in your carry-on,
Mm-hmm.
and your hunting boots have to be on your feet or in your carry-on. Now, I'm not going to
That's
wear
right.
hunting boots for a full 24 hours or more of travel. I'm just not going to do it. It's not comfortable for me. Don't wear tennis shoes, running shoes, but they're going to be in my bag. My spotting scope's going to be in my bag, and my binos are going to be in my bag. After that, whatever else is gravy, but those things have to be with you on that airplane, in my opinion. Like, I
That's
don't know why you
that's
would do it without those things.
That's right, and I've played with all that for years, and I tell you what I wear on the plane now. This is a very recent development. Is these Solomon, these trail running shoes. So it's
Uh-huh.
basically like a tennis shoe, but it's
Yeah,
built to be a hiking tennis shoe. So something like that would be great to have on your feet, because in most cases it would be fine for a few days,
sure.
and then you could put your, if you had heavier boots, those could go in your suitcase. But yeah, I get those Eagle Creek Ziploc bags, those compression bags, and I'm gonna have one change of clothes in the bottom of my backpack, and I'm gonna have my coat, jacket, whatever kind of jacket. Um, there's maybe even a hoodie of some kind. So no matter what, I'm set.
Yeah.
Obviously, any kind of prescription medication or supplements you take, you need some of those with you. But on the suitcase, I've changed my philosophy on that for years. I used to just buy cheap, hard side Walmart suitcase and get 2 or 3 international trips out of it, throw it away. That's what I'd probably recommend for most people. But for me, I went to the Pelican Air suitcase. And so that's a nice option. It's lockable and it'll make, if you're going to do a lot of trips, I mean, it's expensive, but if you're going to do a lot of trips, I think it's well worth it. And
Mm.
certainly has been for me. Otherwise, just a good hard side suitcase. But having everything in your backpack to make it 2 or 3 days, we had it happen going to Austria, of all places. My gun never came, and our suitcases didn't come for like 3 days. And
Hmm.
here I'm in a like some kind of little button down shirt hunting and had to borrow. I wasn't prepared, but going to Europe, you didn't think you needed much.
Yeah.
The saving grace on that one is he has a Blaser R8 for me to shoot, so I was fine as far
My
as the gun.
first Mexico trip, I got there. I was hunting with my buddy Art, who wasn't allowed to take his guns to Africa. Um, but he invited me down there, and we get to the outfitter's place, and I think we hunted for a day, and then 4 dudes from Houston showed up. Only one of them had a bag. The other ones were in sandals or like hey dudes. And it's January, and you're in the desert. It gets cold in the morning and at
Yes.
night. And they were all bigger, like heavy set guys. So I was like, here guys, y'all can go through my stuff, and if something fits you, you're more than welcome to use it. They were like so grateful. They shared a toothbrush. They put tequila on it, and they shared a toothbrush. I'm not kidding you. Like, how did you not? You didn't even travel with your toiletries. Like, I just was like, my mind was blown. But they won't do it again. I guarantee you that.
So funny little pro tip, you were talking about being on Qatar in the Q suite, and these international business class things, they give you a little amenity kit.
Yeah,
It's a little leather. It's usually a nice little leather bag. Now they've gotten to where they only give it to you one way.
yeah.
So I think lately, I think eastbound you get it in the box and westbound you get it in the leather bag. I take one of those and make a miniature toiletry kit for myself that's in my backpack,
Mm-hmm.
and that covers me. So I'm never going to be without a toothbrush or whatever it is that I need. But yeah, man, it's tough when you get there and you don't have. You got to have boots and a jacket. I mean,
You have to.
when some guys wear shorts on the plane, and I have to scold my son about that. You're wearing jeans because if you get there with nothing, you can wear the jeans for day after day after day, and you're fine.
Yeah. And by the way, Qatar gives you pajamas to change into. If you're not for me this year,
It,
but in the past, a couple times.
it's
Uh,
amazing. We keep them sometimes and reuse them.
my wife definitely sleeps in them. I was
They're
like, I got you
nice.
a gift. She's like, what? Oh, they came with the airline ticket. Uh, Vaccines, you don't need them for South Africa. I don't. Do you need them for Zimbabwe?
No, I always tell people you need a current tetanus and you don't need anything else. Everybody has to make their own decision. When you're going further north, Zimbabwe or Limpopo, depending on the time of year, Caprivi, Namibia, everybody needs to make their own decision on malaria prophylaxis, what's right for them based on the risk. And
Mm,
that could take a little studying, but we've definitely done that in the past, taking the preventative medicines. And but that's one of those things people, it's a personal decision. People need to discuss it with their doctor. But the only place that requires a vaccine is like Zambia with yellow fever,
yeah,
and then further north maybe.
yeah.
But your southern African countries, really, there's no requirement. I just had a friend call me. They were on a mission trip to Kenya, and we just went through the list of recommended vaccines, and I just gave her my opinion and said, "Yeah, you talk to your doctor, but here's what I know, and you'll make your own decision." But some of the things they were asking for were ridiculous.
Mm, mm. Um, I think we should talk as we're wrapping up here about hidden costs. And so you book a safari, and you can do. And I had a guy, one of my good friends. He just retired as a fireman, and he's in his early 60s, and he gave himself the retirement trip, and he was on a very strict budget. Very frugal guy, and he did the whole thing for I think 9 grand. Um,
Okay.
and he shot 5 or 6 animals, and had a trip of a lifetime for him. I tell people if you want to just do plains game, if you can budget 15,000, you're gonna have a great safari. If you want to just go and have a good safari, and this is all relative. You could go there and if you're happy shooting impala and a blessed buck and some things that if you don't want to shoot an eland, which is over $3,000 or an inyala or whatever, well, okay, you can do it for a lot cheaper. But if you say I want to do a kudu and an eland, or a kudu and an inyala, or some combination of that, maybe shoot a wildebeest and a warthog, and whatever. If you want to shoot 6 or 7 animals, if you can budget 15 and you'll shoot some really nice animals, that's where I would recommend. You don't need more than that because these animals, they're not. People don't realize you could shoot 7 animals, and when you add up your trophy fees, it'd be well under $10,000, like well under.
Right.
And then, so if you could do with flight, and then I say gratuity, all in 15, great. If you like, no, I just can't. You can take 12. You can get in the game and have a wonderful trip. But there are hidden fees, and I'm including everything in that, other than once the safari's over.
Right.
And I even am including gratuity on those, like, because some of the, like, you can shoot a common reed or a mountain reed buck for $400, or a nice impala. Impala's very affordable. It's like $500. So people don't understand. Not all these animals are $1,000 or more.
Right.
The hidden fees for me is like, okay, you're going to get charged for trophy care. You're going to have to pay a company in Africa to dip and pack your animal. If you're not doing the taxidermy there, they're still going to charge you to dip it and prep it, right? Gun rental, it's not real expensive, a couple $100 if you're renting a gun. Gratuity that's something you need to think about. And I when I went for the first time, I said, what's a good tip for my PH? Between $100 and $200 a day.
Correct.
Ballpark. And then you're going to need to tip the cook and the cleaning staff. I give that to the house, whatever. And your PH will tell you what's appropriate, right? And then your tracker. So there's your gratuity list. And then the only really other hidden thing that I think I can think of is the shipping the trophy back home. Yes, once it's all said and done, in 3 to 6 months, you're going to get a bill, or you're going to get a, hey, how do you want this sent to the United States? And it's going to come back in a crate, and it's going to cost you, I don't know, if you don't shoot anything super heavy like Big 5 stuff, but just plains game, between like, I don't know, $700 and $1,000 probably. And so that's really the only other hidden fee. Like if I said budget 12, budget 15, I'm not including that. That's really the only thing I'm not including there.
No, you've got a good handle on that, Cable, as much as you've done it. I would divide it into 2 segments. One is travel and the hunt in total, and then dip and pack, taxidermy / shipping. I would put that as kind of part B. Just for planning purposes, because I want to tell people that you're not obligated to bring everything home. And so that's one of the biggest questions I get. But on the front end, I wouldn't call them hidden fees necessarily, but these miscellaneous fees that we need to be aware of is going to be travel agent, $200, $300 possibly. South Africa, pre-approved gun permit, $160. Air travel, we used to be able to say $2,000 would cover your plane ticket and an overnight, and now we're about $3,000, and that's still probably not enough. That's probably not, probably more like $3,500. You've got a hunt, whether it's a package or daily rate plus. You need to decide on how you want to do that. Tips, you're right on the money. I always say a plains game hunt, the PH, $100 should be for a good hunt. $100 a day, and then up from there based on your experience. That's just kind of a baseline. Some camp, you want to talk to your outfitter, because some camps will let you batch the camp staff tip. Some of them want you to tap everybody individually, but I love it when they'll let you batch the whole camp staff into one. So like one of the ones we've been doing is like 500 maybe.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, 500
covers camp staff. Then your tracker, depends on what kind of tracker you've got. I mean, $10 a day, $20 a day, $30 a day. It's just up to you. That's why it's called a gratuity. It's up to you. But the other thing, talking about hidden costs, this could be an actual hidden cost. You need to ask your outfitter, does he charge to drive you to camp from the airport?
Hmm.
And so, most people I hunt with in Southern Africa, there's not a charge to get you to camp, pick you up at the airport, pick up and drop off. You go to big, dangerous game place like Zimbabwe, there's definitely a fee or a
Yeah.
charter plane involved. And so, like, we'll
Argentina
be flying
was
on.
like that. It was $150 for airport transport, which was super cool because they picked us up in a freaking like a Sprinter van, and they had a
Nice.
case of beer there and a cooler for us. I was like, yeah, this is
You're
nice.
still you're working on me, Cable. I'm gonna have to go to Argentina with you. Sounds like,
Yeah.
but there is some little cost there, and I tell guys, I said it's a prudent thing to do. Take time, make yourself a spreadsheet on your computer,
Hmm.
put your wish list in there. If you've got a package hunt, that makes it easy. But put all those things in there if you want to know what the bottom dollar is. Now, when we get to part B, the dip, pack, and shipping, you some of the people like I work with, they've got it on their website. They like to have their own taxidermy.
Hmm.
So they have the taxidermy prices, they have the dip and pack prices. You can just add it all up and find out how much that is. There's going to be some fees for permits that's variable based on what you hunt. It could be a few $100s, could be nearly $1,000. Then your air freight. And believe it or not, Cable, I've researched this with the groups I've taken every which way to try to do a sea container of ocean freight, and do something cheaper. And it just doesn't work. The port fees will eat you up. If it gets stuck in a port unnecessarily, it could be disastrously expensive. So
Yeah.
we're just going to do air freight. We're going to put it on a plane to Dallas on air freight. Usually goes on Turkish Airways. That's going to be around $2,500 to $3,500.
Okay.
I've seen one that was 4,000, but it was like just recently, but it was a giraffe neck and a bunch of
Yeah.
big stuff. So 2,500
My buddy that's
for dip.
flying on Delta first class, he did that last time. I've always just taken the risk, and it just comes across on a boat and ends up in Houston, and then from there I have to get it to my taxidermist. Or if he has a lot of stuff coming, say 3 or 4 of the guys from my safari are using him, he'll just go pick it up.
That's good. That's really good. But you're going to have a fee to import agent that's going to clear your stuff when it gets so air freight, and then um, you're going to pay an import agent. Like there's several different ones. Coppersmith's one of them. They're at DFW for us, and there's others. You're going to pay them a fee that does a clearing of customs and fish and wildlife. And then in my case, I'm probably going to put it on a truck and just have it sent to my house.
Mm,
And
okay.
so those are the fees to get the stuff home. But what I tell people is, say you're on a big hunting package and you do shoot 10 animals. You don't have to take everyone home, and you don't have to mount everyone. You can do some skulls, do some euros, and do some shoulder, mix it up. But what I want to say is, I don't want somebody to miss the hunt for fear of the taxidermy expense. I would rather you go on the hunt and enjoy yourself and have that time that we all know is going to impact your life, and leave everything there. If that's going to keep you from going to Africa, I want you to go to Africa. Number one goal: go and have that experience that's changed my life. And if the taxidermy is bugging you, well, figure it out, or
Yeah.
don't do any of it.
But either way, that's 6 months to a year down the road when you're gonna maybe even depending on how long it takes to get back to the States, like could be a year and a half. So you're not. I actually still have a Bontabuck I shot on my second safari that's still there because it's a CITES issue and haven't been able to get it back yet. But I knew that going into it. That wasn't like a
Oh man, I shot a
Carl was like,
Bontabuck last year. I shot one last year, and the paperwork wasn't correct with the people we were hunting with, and it was not possible to export it. So
uh,
that was a foul up that none of us saw coming. But
yeah,
I was so wanting to get a Bontabuck so I could fight Fish and Wildlife and try to get it back, and you and I could have the conversations about that. But now I got to go shoot another one because the farm paperwork with the old guy that was raising those things it wasn't up to date, and so we
yeah.
couldn't export it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and there are things that happen like that, and with the whole experience. One thing I would say is you just have to be a little bit flexible. You don't know what's going to happen, and it doesn't have to do with hunting. Like if you're traveling internationally, crap happens sometimes, and so just keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, you said it changed your life. It's obviously changed my life. It's going to change my son's life. There's no
It
doubt.
is.
He's going to see
It is.
something incredible.
No, Cable, we
Uh,
we call those the TIA moments, the This Is Africa moments. And we had a funny one last year. I know we're going to wrap this thing up, but we get to camp in Zimbabwe and we can't hunt the first day. They're having a presidential rally out there in the Ome where we are. The president, vice president, flown in on helicopters, and the army is there. They said, guys, it wouldn't be a good idea to be driving around with guns today. And we would have wound up passing by villages or where the people were to go hunt. And so we lost a whole day of hunting.
Oh,
and it's
wow.
like, well, there's nothing anybody can do about that. The president has come here in the middle of the wilderness to try to get 1,000 votes or whatever it would be. And there was nothing we could do about it. So I went and checked leopard bait with no gun.
Yeah, this is Africa. That's right. Last thing I want to ask you, totally shifting gears. You're a sheep farmer, rancher, sheep rancher. Do you have mountain lions around you? Do you trap? What do you do? I know you're well aware of what's going on in Texas, and we were talking about this off the air and how concerning this is for you and I, specifically in the direction that Texas Parks and Wildlife is going and what it means for the future. Because we talked about those clips from the people that were speaking there in favor of Texans for mountain lions and all this crap.
Right.
Every one of them said the same thing with the underlying message. This is a great start. This is the great first step. So I'm very concerned.
We mostly deal with coyotes. Bobcats are kind of populations down a bit, but they can be a problem. There are mountain lions north of me routinely killed every couple of years. It wouldn't be a surprise if every year some run over on the highway. We had 2 run over on the highway north of us 2 or 3 years ago. 2 in the
How
same
is that possible
winter,
with their numbers so low? How would 2 would get hit? What are the odds of that? That's all. You killed all the ones in Texas. Somebody ran them over.
Let me tell you about mountain lions, Cable. They eat deer, right? What's happened to the deer population in the United States over the last 100 years?
What's happened?
We went from having maybe half a million white-tailed deer in the world. We kill 500,000 now. So the prey base has expanded. My area used to be a grassland 100 years ago. It's now a woodland that contains a lot of game, and that is the prey base for the mountain lion. So without doing any research, we can conclude that the mountain lion in Texas is at the highest population in the history of the earth right now, based on those criteria. We don't have to do any research. And if we want to do research, Cable, there's this thing called Facebook where people post their trail cam pictures. And trail cam pictures are research. It's got a date and time and a location stamp. All they got to do is compile those. They can come up with all the numbers they want to come up with. But I guarantee you there's more mountain lions right now than ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is it doesn't just end with mountain lions. We know where it goes from there. That's the low-hanging fruit for them. That's where they start. So we have to be vigilant this next round, whenever it is, if it's next year, if it's in 2 years or 4 years, those people aren't going anywhere. And they made it very clear when they spoke at the commission meeting that this is the beginning of their crusade.
Whatever happens next, you and I, Cable, are going to be down there in Austin in their ear. Safari Club International is going to be in their ear. I'm a newly elected director at large for Safari Club, and I look forward to serving in a greater role for SCI. And I do think with our local chapter and things that we do here in San Angelo, we've got a big voice, and we're just going to make ourselves heard. Whatever the next thing that comes out of Austin, we've just got to be there, and we've got to absolutely dig our heels in and fight. We let this one pass by. Well, we didn't let it pass by us, but in a sense, we did. And whatever's next, it's a no-go. No-go for me.
Well, I'm going to take you up one of these years. You keep inviting me to y'all's banquet, and I keep saying, I'm going turkey hunting, or Henry has a soccer tournament or whatever, and life just gets in the way. Your son, is he your oldest or youngest? Or
young. This is the youngest.
You're about to be an empty nester. I'm at this stage of life where it's insane.
It's hard to believe. Jennifer and I have been raising kids since we were 21, so we don't really know what we're going to do. But no, seriously, Cable, we would love to have you and your wife come join us at our San Angelo Safari Club chapter banquet. We're one of the top chapters in the world in terms of fundraising, and we're doing a lot of really good things here in little old San Angelo, Texas. And so we're really proud of what we do. We put on a fancy event that's well attended and has a great auction, and it's just a lot of fun. And in Safari Club, we work hard, but we also play hard, and we have a good time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Philip. I appreciate it. Hope you and your son have an amazing time in Zimbabwe, and I'm sure we'll trade hunting stories once I get back from South Africa.
Absolutely, Cable. It sounds great. Appreciate you having me on. Have a good
Uh,
day.
all right. Take care.